This podcast contains content that may be disturbing to some audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Ever since I was a little kid, I've just kind of been enamored with like the weird side of life. I grew up around cemeteries pretty much all my life. My grandma's best friend, she had like part of the cemetery in her backyard. So we were always around it.
The dream. The actual dream. Yeah.
Like death in the whole like paranormal world was always just like this weird little constant in my life. And then when I was growing up, it really wasn't anything that was really spoken about. Like when I started going into like middle school and stuff, that's when like the paranormal TV shows came out. So when that started happening, I was like fully in on it. I was like, I want to do this. Yes. I don't know how, but I want to do it. And then like as I grew up, I kind of fell away from it because no one wanted to talk about it. Like I would still do like the sleepover stuff. Like I'd coerce my friends into playing like Bloody Mary and light as a feather, stiff as a board. And it was perfect because we all went to Catholic school. So I was the bad influence. Hey guys. Instead of like prank phone calling. Yeah. Like instead of like prank phone calling people, why don't we like summon the dead?
Yep. Who needs prank phone calls when you can talk to dead people?
Right? I was like, guys, this is like, we can like prank the ghosts. Just hang out with the Ouija board. It's cool. So I had that. And then like, as I grew up, like in high school and stuff, no one wanted to talk about it. So I kind of like fell off into like other things. And then like my senior year, I started investigating around Buffalo. And for like the past like 10 years, it was on and off. And then the last 3 years, right after the pandemic, I started the Ghoul Guide, and it has just kicked off this whirlwind of nonstop traveling and hanging out in some of the weirdest places and just constantly being on the road. So it has been like I never thought that an Instagram blog would bring me to this point in my life, but I'm so here for it.
How many followers do you have on social media?
I think between all platforms, it's almost at 100K.
Wow.
But I really try not to keep track of anything. A lot of my followers came from Reels. So it's like the Instagram version of like TikTok and stuff. I had like 3 Reels go viral at the same time. So that's like where all of them came from. I really try not to look into the numbers. I really only made this blog to find friends who wanted to go do this and who like just so I could go see some of these like crazy places. So like I did that. So like now everything's just kind of like icing on top of the cake. So I'm just here for a good time, not a long time.
You're living in the moment.
And it's about the fun and the enjoyment of loving what you do and sharing what you love instead of being like, oh, I have to get more followers. I found you because of your Polaroids and your photography. It's literally like it feeds my soul. Every time I see your pictures, like I don't think I've ever told you this, but I'm like, this needs to be a coffee table art book. Like I just see them with like the pictures and the story that goes along with it. And then on like this massive book where I can look at it and I can hold it and just like,
who knows, maybe one day. I just had this thing where I would just take mirror selfies in haunted locations. I grew up in the MySpace era, so it's just what we did. And it's just so easy to like take a mirror selfie just from a haunted location and like have it just be that moment like I was here. And then I remember posting about it and just being like, hi, my name's Courtney. I love taking mirror selfies in haunted locations. And my sister found it and she's just like, yeah, I want a coffee table book of all of your mirror selfies.
See?
And it just kind of like spiraled from there. So who knows? We could have a mirror selfie book come out. We could have a photography book come out.
A mirror selfie book or a photography book with mirror selfies mixed in. I go to your page and I get my ghost hunting fix, like living vicariously through you.
The thing that I love about it, Courtney, is that you introduce the fun involved in it. So most people think of paranormal investigating as scary and spooky and blah, blah, blah. Let's collect evidence, blah, blah, blah. But they don't mention the fact that you get to travel to cool places and see historical buildings and find the history behind what happened there. And we get to meet new friends and all this other stuff. And like, we get to actually talk about the people who lived here and died here and what are their stories. And I love how you mention all of that in your blog posts and in your Instagram stories. And I want to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, thank you.
That's my favorite part.
So it's just who I am. I'm a very like happy-go-lucky person. Like I just love having fun. And I always try to like put myself in like the ghost shoes. I know it sounds silly, but if I was a ghost and I was hanging out in these buildings and seeing all these teams come through, I wouldn't want to listen to the same 15 questions that are being asked about if I was dead or do I know what year it is? Am I a demon? What I've also come to realize is that like when you are not even investigating and you're just kind of hanging out in the moment, that's when things start to kick up. Like at Madison Seminary, we were just hanging out in the asylum. My friend's husband was just rolling around on a wheelchair getting B-roll, and me and her laying on the floor playing checkers on the one big checkerboard. And he played back a video and you heard a breath get taken. Like it was just shot on his phone. We weren't doing anything. We weren't investigating. We were just hanging out. And then since we replayed that back, we tried to ignore it. But then like you would hear knocks and stuff coming from down the hallway. So we ended up whipping out the recorder and we were talking about it. And we caught some of like the craziest stuff, which is just so fun to me because you're thinking outside of the box and you're not even trying to investigate. I always joke around saying that I hate equipment. I'm from the early days of like ghost hunting where it's just like, oh, here's an EMF detector. Like for me, like if you love equipment, don't get me wrong, do your stuff. I love it. I just personally, it's my ADHD. Like I just forget I have it half the time.
Right.
What do you do? Just use your spidey senses or what?
So like a lot of so I'm always with my friends usually. I never really go off on my own. So like they always have equipment. So I'll never like bring it out. And if anything, I just do like the Estes method and do like a digital recorder and call it a day.
Yes.
I just love going into places and kind of like camouflaging myself and just letting it come to me. Like
feel what you feel.
Yeah. Like and just what I found fun is just kind of just like just hanging out. You're in their space. They have to get comfortable with you. You got to get comfortable with them. So like you're just hanging out. And sometimes I feel like the equipment takes away from that. And like you're missing stuff because you're so focused on the equipment. So I just like kind of having fun and like thinking outside of the box where we're not about equipment. So like we played checkers the one time at Waverly Hills last year. We did a glow in the dark Easter egg hunt.
For those of our listeners who don't know about Waverly Hills, can you kind of tell us where it's at and what it is?
Yeah, so Waverly Hills is in Louisville, Kentucky. It's about 10 miles outside of the actual city. It was a tuberculosis hospital, so it served the city of Louisville and the surrounding, and Jefferson County really, up until the 1950s-ish. It's pretty much this massive location. I don't know the square footage, but it's 5 floors. It has the infamous death tunnel or the body chute. Basically, that was a tunnel when they were constructing the building. That was a tunnel that they used to haul up the materials from the bottom of the hill to make it easier on the construction workers. And then during the height of tuberculosis, there was a death an hour.
Oh, wow.
So because they didn't really have a cure for tuberculosis and they were just really focusing on patient morale, they decided to use the material tunnel to haul off the bodies. So no one actually saw just how much death was occurring during the height of tuberculosis.
You posted a video of you in that tunnel, and that's like, that's the most freaked out I've ever been. Just like secondhand viewing a video. I was like, there's something in the shadows. There's something in the shadows.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was just happy to be there. Like, I didn't have to see a ghost that night. I didn't have to do anything. Like, I knew it was haunted in my heart. I was just happy to be there.
Just being there.
Yeah. Right. So like, I was just here for a great time. And then we ended up splitting up with our group. So it was me and like 3 other girls. And the rest of the group just went off on the other side of the hospital. They had no idea where we were. We were recording on our digital recorder. And I remember having mine be the only one out because someone stopped theirs. So as soon as mine rolled over to a minute, we heard this insane door slam happen. So like I was sitting up on top of the steps and I just kept looking at the only entrance and exit to the tunnel. And I was just like, guys, I can't take my eyes off of this. Like, this is weird. I feel like anytime I look away, something's just going to rush us down the tunnel and we're going to be stuck. And everyone's like, yeah, all right. And then someone said that they heard like a whisper coming from the far end of the tunnel. So we all got super, super quiet. And I looked away. And within like the second my recorder flipped over to a minute, that's when we captured the door slam. And instantly all four of us screamed our heads off because we didn't know what was happening. You could just hear someone go, "What was that?" And someone's like, "I don't know." And it was like we were just panicking. And me and another girl, we booked it down the hallway, which I was even surprised that I did that. I was just I gotta go. I'm like, I gotta go figure out what it is. And we figured out that it was like the emergency exit door, which is like in the tunnel that connects the body chute to the actual hospital. And like the emergency or like the floodlight outside was on too. So it was like a motion light. Ooh. And come to find out, the other side or like the other group that we had, they didn't have their walkies on. Like they didn't know where we were. They didn't hear us scream. They didn't hear the door slam. So like they had literally no idea what was happening. And here we are just terrified in this tunnel. And that ended up kicking off this like hour and a half long of paranormal activity that kind of like showed us out for the night. So it was a really cool experience. And it's just pretty cool to like be in that weird part of history that we had that's now also turned into like this huge iconic piece of paranormal history.
Yeah.
You have to think that almost every single day of the year there's a team in there or there's tours, and you're constantly telling the story, you're constantly telling the history, and then you have the teams are coming in there at night. They're putting their own energy in there. We're making egregores because we keep talking about the history. So it is just
Charlie and I talked about
massive
egregores.
thing. I love egregores. I think I made one, and I don't know what to do when I actually have to confront it.
A lot of people do without realizing it, honestly.
Can you explain what an egregore is for anybody who doesn't know?
So an egregore is just really like a thought form spirit that we create. So if you think long and hard about something and you keep talking about it and you keep putting your energy into this, there's a really good Kindred Spirits episode that details this haunting where, they wrote down like this person, he plays with the K2, he goes by the name of like Kevin or something. And then like when they reach out to him, or they like go back and, try to investigate later, they end up getting the K2 hits and they get a response saying, "My name is Kevin," or whatever it said, because they created this. So
because they
so like a lot of the hauntings that are out there are probably some that, we've created because we've just constantly tell the story.
I think that's happened on several of the investigations that I've been on, because so many people have been in there investigating and putting their own energy in there and their own. Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of what we experience is exactly that.
But even that on its own is like super cool too.
It is.
Holy crap, we're making ghosts.
We all can create energy. Like we're all energy and we can create it. And that's what's kind of fascinating, right?
Yeah.
The way that we interact with the paranormal can also change or grow what's happening around us. Like Waverly probably was always haunted because of how much death was there. But now we are actively breathing life into it every time, like you were saying, every time somebody tells the story, every time somebody engages, it's like almost like it gives them a root to hold on to.
It's got to leave so much energy behind, so many different energy prints. I mean, that's heartbreaking. So you raised the question, what if we're the ghosts? Can you talk about that some more?
So this is like one of my favorite theories. So every time like there's like a dull moment on an investigation, especially like when we're doing events and like nothing's happening, so we're kind of like, all right, like let's throw out theories. We throw out this one, and it's one of my favorite ones to talk about. So it's, what if we're the ghost?
Yes.
So what if, like I said, how we're egregore, or how we're creating egregores, what if we're creating the hauntings because time doesn't exist in some sense?
It doesn't. It's meaningless.
So time doesn't exist. It's not a real thing. And so there's two things. Like, what if the paranormal experiences that we have, like the glimpses of full body apparitions or shadows, or, like the disembodied voices that we hear, or disembodied like medical equipment going off, what if that all just happens because the timelines somehow just merge for a hot second?
Yes.
And everything is right in the world for that to happen. But then also leading off of that, what if the ghosts that we are seeing are actually us from the future, or us from the past in some sense? My friend Steve, he brought up this like really cool example from when like he went to Trans-Allegheny. he was walking up the stairs and, he was just about to open the door. And it's like, what if he opened the door and all of a sudden he was transported back into 1920 when everything, everything was there.
Like a time slip.
Yeah, like a time slip, really.
Uh-huh.
And then, but in that moment, the nurse at the desk saw him and was like, who the hell is that?
A man just appeared. This place is haunted.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then she goes off to tell all her other friends at like the nurse's station, was like, you'll never believe what I just saw. And then so it's like, what if
a guy disappeared?
Yeah. So like, what if we are creating the ghost stories that we're eventually like ending up, talking about and trying to figure out in the future all these years later. So I don't know. It's just a weird, fun little rabbit hole to go down. There's so many different ways you can lead off into it.
Agreed. I love all these theories.
These are, I'm so excited I forgot how to speak. Like all my thoughts are like racing in my head and trying to leave my mouth all at the same time. And then
that's me every day of my life.
Yeah, I'm just like, me too. How do I form words? I love experimenting with this too, or even just like thinking about it. And my way of describing exactly what you're saying is like the scene in Iron Man where he's drawing the Iron Man, the first one, where he's drawing the suit, but they're all on separate layers of tissue paper. And when you hold just one up, it's only a small piece of it. And it's when you layer them all together that you get the complete picture. It's those moments of like, if our realities are interwoven, like you said, time is meaningless. So like multiple timelines can be happening all at once, all in the same moment. And there could just be a little rip in one of those tissue papers that lets you see through and experience this. And I actually have tried. I've tried on purpose to be like, it didn't work when I tried. I've accidentally haunted myself in another way, but not the shadow figures. I'm back living in Texas, but I had a dream that I visited my house in Florida. It was on the market. It was getting ready to sell. And I just was kind of feeling a little bit sad about it. And in the dream, I was wandering around my house and I like touched the walls. And I remember being very upset that they repainted one of my favorite rooms. And like, I knew that this happened in reality because I okayed these changes. I was like, of course, yes, paint over the spot where I got fucking blue paint on the ceiling and never bothered to fix it, because it was this whole thing. And then I was like, if somebody else had been in my house, I would have been the angry spirit that somebody changed my house. You know what I mean? Like, because one of the things people say a lot too is that the ghosts will get like riled up during renovation projects. And I woke up from that and I was like, oh, it was me. I was the angry ghost.
I would have been like, oh, thank you for fixing that. I've been meaning to fix that for 5 years.
Yeah, no, I was weird about it. I was like, I liked that fuck up.
How dare you?
How dare you? The way that emotions can add to a haunting is really interesting to me. And I wonder if the mindset that you go in there with makes it so that you have more of these moments. Like you're looking, but you're not looking. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're not there to just collect the evidence. You're there to actually experience the experience.
Yeah. So like a lot of people have like asked like, because I have like EVPs and stuff that I post. A lot of people like wonder why I never really post evidence or, like when I'm going to start a YouTube. And it's like, guys, like we don't do that. Like I get so wrapped up in the moment where like, even now, I still forget to grab content for myself. And so, like, I look back on all my pictures and videos sometimes. I'm just
I do the same thing. Oh, I forgot to hit record.
Yeah. Like, what the hell am I supposed to post about this place? Because I had too much fun and I got, like, a shitty, blurry picture of this. Like, yeah. Like I said, if you have, like, a different mindset, like, and that works for you, then so be it. But I would just encourage everyone to kind of, like, leave the equipment out for a little bit or, just kind of like set it and forget it and just kind of
just experience the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I know that death and everything that we do as like paranormal investigators, like it is heavy and it's very serious and, we all need to tread lightly with it. But as long as you're respectful, I don't see a problem in it. And you have to remember that we are stuck in these dirty, dark, gross buildings for up to 8 hours in the dark, just talking to the air and hoping that it talks back to us. So like, I feel like you kind of have to have fun to make the day or like to make the night go by.
Right.
Yeah.
Why else would you do all that? Yeah.
Exactly. And like I said, like that can like lead into like some of the craziest experiences, like how we had the breath on the phone, or, you know, how we heard the knocking, and then how we had the door slam, and like all this stuff. And like, I don't know, it's just cool to experience. So if you haven't tried it, I suggest you do.
I agree.
I do too.
You also mentioned how you have a team that brings in different theories and different ideas and different skill sets to the group. And how do you think that adds to being able to investigate the paranormal?
So I think that like we all have different perspectives, and we all like grew up differently, and we all have different mindsets. So I feel like having a group of people with you that helps an investigation, because, well, I might see something as one thing, someone's gonna come in with a connection from a different angle. Like yesterday I was actually at the Palmyra Historical Museum. I was doing a strange escape with Amy Bruni.
Oh my gosh, how cool.
It was such a fun time.
Is it in Palmyra, New York?
Mm-hmm. It's about like an hour away from me. So I investigated the museum.
Isn't that where
the Fox sisters are? Yeah.
Yep.
And isn't that where Joseph Smith started also, the Mormon?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So I actually got to go in the Fox Sisters Foundation yesterday. That was like my inside, cool. Like my 7-year-old was like dying.
Oh, I bet.
One of the houses belonged to the Phelps, and their daughter, Sybil, she was a spiritualist. And we believed that we were contacting her yesterday with dowsing rods. The one medium there, Heather, she's actually from Western New York. She had the dowsing rods in her hand, and I don't know what she said about the canal or something, but I had it in my head. I was like, well, what if the bad guy is this Francis Tumblety? If you don't know, Francis Tumblety was actually the only American suspect in the Jack the Ripper case, who's actually buried in Rochester, New York.
I just died. I forgot. We had this conversation and I didn't. Oh, okay. Go on.
So
I'm so excited.
So there was, I don't know what was happening in like the dowsing rod session. Like I was kind of like in and out of it, but she was making this connection, like something was coming from the water, and he was just a very bad man. And there's just a dark, you know, like there's someone there who shouldn't be. And I don't know what came over me. And I just like remember peeking around the door, and I was like, oh, what about Francis Tumblety? And, and Heather looked at,
but there were a lot of bad men that came from that.
Yeah. But like the way, I don't know why I made the connection. And Heather actually looked at me and she goes, holy crap, my friend Mike actually does all the, like, he is like a huge Jack the Ripper fan. She's like, I should have thought of that.
Oh my gosh.
And I go, I'm like, I think the only way like it really resonated with me was because of the canal. Because Rochester and Palmyra are only 45 minutes away from each other. And I know that he used to peddle dirty magazines and stuff along the canal. And he was really like a traveling quack doctor. So it's just like, what if? Like, I'm not saying we were talking to Francis Tumblety and that he's hanging out at Palmyra, but like, what if?
But what if?
I brought that different perspective into that moment. So like when you're hanging out and like, like with my friends, and like, if you want to call it my team, like I don't really have a team, I'm just me, but I help my friends out with their event company. So I'm always with them. I think like having people on your side and just having those like quick realizations helps the investigation in a way. I guess that's where I'm trying to go with this.
I think it does, because we all go into things with our own perspectives and our own viewpoints. And one of the things that I think a lot and I try to express is that our thought process will color the investigation, and that each person is only getting a little sliver of it. Those all come together to paint a broader picture of what is actually happening. So it's, in my mind, it's beneficial to go in and be like, look at this thing.
Well, it is. And I think you need to look at it from everybody's different perspective and everybody's different ideas, because one person might connect with one spirit, one person might connect with another spirit, or the spirit you're connecting with is not who you think you're connecting with. And so somebody else's idea, or, you know, you thought maybe you were connecting with Jack the Ripper's whatever.
I'm so excited about that.
The fact that you're the one that thought of that, oh, hey, maybe that's really what it is. And so I think it's really important to like take everybody's perspective and ideas and theories into the whole gamut of things and be able to use it all. And that's how you get evidence, and that's how you get questions answered, and that's how you get spirits to communicate with you.
Yeah, and you never really know who, like, what someone's going to bring to the table.
You don't. Exactly. Yeah. You also mentioned how you try to put your mindset in the spirits that you're trying to communicate with, and how exactly do you do that?
I don't really know, actually. I kind of just, I try to like shake out my nerves when I get there. Sometimes like after, like if we're doing an event, sometimes after, you know, like we set up and before people start coming, I'll do like a quick little walkthrough around some areas and just kind of get a feel for the night. A lot of the places that I've been going to, I actually like, I've been going to them quite a bit, which I know like some people kind of like don't like, but I love going to places more than once, especially because
Me too.
It's so fun to see like the contrast between the different nights.
You don't always get the same stuff.
Exactly.
I do too.
And then, and like you open up new things each time. And I feel like if you visit a spot more than once, like the spirits are going to get comfortable with you. And, you know, like stuff's going to happen more.
And they recognize you.
They remember
They do.
Like, yep.
She's back. I remember this one from the last time.
Yeah. She wasn't an asshole. Maybe I'll talk to her again.
Yeah. The homestead ghouls seem to know what I'm around. And I also make it fairly known that I'm around there.
Yeah.
I'm kind of obnoxious every time I walk in there. I'm like, hi guys. I'm back. And they're just like, oh God, this girl again? Like, really?
You have a religious background. Do you feel like that played a role in your paranormal beliefs or how you investigate in any sense at all?
I'm not so religious anymore. But that's kind of what happens when you go to Catholic school young.
Yeah.
But I feel like if anything, it kind of piqued my curiosity more and kind of helped me go down this path because I went to Catholic school and I had a very religious grandma. So I went to Catholic school from pre-K to 8th grade, and then I was thrown into public school, and that was a culture shock.
Culture shock.
It was bad.
Sure.
But I feel like going into Catholic school and listening and going to mass once a week and, you know, having religion twice a week and listening to all these stories about the Catholic afterlife, which is heaven and hell and purgatory, and like listening to all this in like the formative years, how am I not supposed to question everything that's being told to me? And then like I said, I don't really know how I fell into the paranormal world. It was just like this weird constant that I felt very comfortable with. And I feel like the weirdness of the universe kind of just like always was there for me. So if anything, being in the Catholic Church for a little bit, that just fueled the curiosity more and just made me be like, well, what about this?
Yes.
They're saying you can be ghosts, and like you're talking about the Holy Spirit. Like, isn't that the same idea?
Right?
Like, so like I was always that like troublemaker in school, and everyone was just like, I don't want to hear about it. Like once like I hit like I think like fifth or sixth grade, and like started learning about Bloody Mary, and I was like, maybe we should do this. And they're just like, oh.
You know what sounds fun? Let's get the old Ouija board out here. Oh, I actually wanted to ask you about that because we were joking about that earlier, but I know that a lot of Catholic people are just terrified of Ouija boards. And obviously I've seen your pictures and your videos on the world's largest Ouija board.
Actually, that's the second. I've gotten yelled at for that. It is so...
No way.
Forgive me. So they made a Ouijazilla, I think that's what they called it, in Salem a couple years ago. My friend Steve was actually in there. They didn't want to pay, I think it was like 10 grand to get Guinness World Record out there to give them that. So it's their
own fault then.
They're really in like Ripley's Believe It or Not. And I had so many bros tell me that Ripley was a side thing to the Guinness World Record.
Have you used a Ouija board? Are you like, what are your thoughts on Ouija boards in general?
I have used them. I know my mom is probably going to listen to this and going to be like, God damn
Sorry,
it, Mom. This really good childhood friend that I had, her grandparents lived across the street from my childhood home, and I corrupted her, and I was like, hey, what about the ghosts? And then like she ended up getting a Ouija board, and we brought it to her grandma's house to play, and like I don't know, it moved around on its own, but like looking back, it's like we were probably just kids all trying to freak each other out and didn't want to say anything. I personally don't believe there's anything with them. I just think it's just a piece of wood.
Another tool.
It's just another tool. Going back to the whole religious thing, my dad and my mom actually hate them. So like growing up, they were always like, I don't want to see it. I don't want anything in the house. don't you dare play with them. And I'm just like, little do you know.
Wow.
So
I have one in my closet.
I
yeah,
have one
and like
on my desk right this very second, actually.
right, like I bought a Scooby-Doo one. I cried over it. Like it's happening.
It's just a game.
It really is.
It is.
So they wanted nothing to do with it. And it was actually, I think it was like actually last month where, you know, that she came down in a bubble conversation, like that whole meme, how the guy's just yelling at his friend. I was literally having that type of conversation with my dad about Ouija boards. I was like, well, what's the difference between a Ouija board and a spirit box? You're both opening yourself up to communication.
There is no difference.
I've said that so many times, and you know how many times I have gotten reamed for saying that? It's not the same thing. I'm like, it is the same thing.
It's just a modern day Ouija board.
It's all about the intent you put into the tool you're using.
Exactly. And then like it's also like I can't think of the word for it, but they did like a scientific study on it where it's all subconscious, where you really think you are not moving it, but deep down you actually
but you kind of are.
Yeah.
It's kind of like pendulums.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I listened to my friend's lecture that they gave at Haunted America a couple years ago about the Ouija board and about how there really shouldn't be any stigma behind it, mainly because back in the Victorian days, it was really just used to connect with grief and, you know, try to connect to the ones that, you know, passed on. There was really nothing scary about it. And
there's
then
nothing demonic about it.
Yeah, there was nothing demonic about it. And then all of a sudden there was just this flip and the satanic panic happened. And then they were just deemed as this horrible, horrible thing. And it's the furthest thing from the truth.
Can I ask you something slightly controversial? Okay.
I would love it.
And I'm gonna do this with what I normally do and explain my viewpoint behind it, because this is one that gets people all sorts of fired up. But
I can't wait.
Oh, I cannot wait.
First of all, fuck Ed Warren, and I'm sorry for that opinion, but I'm also not sorry. But I think that the Warrens, I think that the Warrens are, I think that they did a lot for the.
Oh, Carly froze.
Oh, I'm back. Oh. Yay. Okay. I saw my
They did
picture.
a lot for the paranormal. Yes.
My picture just disappeared, and I went, oh, see what I get for mentioning the Warrens. Now they're haunting me. They're pissed. Ed is pissed. I've gone on several Ed Warren rants, because if you look into the history of the man, like we laud him as this like incredible person. No, he was actually the worst. I think that their influence over the Ouija board,
that was my cat.
I love cats. Their influence.
Now your cat is being.
See
yep,
what's
now
happening?
my cat is Ed Warren.
Do you see what's happening? I have said something unholy, and now we are having all of these things. Melissa, do you have any of your things going? Any of your devices? Okay, so I have a lot of respect for the Warrens and what they did for the paranormal community, because odds are if they hadn't had the level of success and the investigations that they had, then like where would the paranormal be now? Like, they're household names. They have the Conjuring universe, you know. I like the Conjuring versions of them better. But I've read a few things like that were kind of tracking people's opinions on the Ouija boards before and after Ed and Lorraine Warren. What do you think about that?
Oh, the Warrens. While they did have a hand in bringing a lot of the paranormal things to light, I feel like when you start going into the field, you have to have like some respect for them in a sense. And then like the rose-colored glasses fall off the more you kind of dive into the stories of them.
Yep.
And it sucks because like that's my cat.
They cats are acting up.
They did what they could, but they could have been doing so much more. Like they could have been doing like everything so much better. And I don't really know what to say about them. Like
you don't have to say anything about them in particular. Just the Ouija board.
Oh, the Ouija board thing. They did really add into the whole satanic panic thing, especially when the whole Conjuring thing happened and the whole devil made me do it story.
He was a demonologist, wasn't he?
If that's a word.
I think that's what he claimed to be.
I'm not super familiar with what it takes to become an exorcist through the Catholic Church, but I know that he like paraded that he had this special permission to perform exorcisms or to be a demonologist or whatever, when it just was like, I don't know, a piece of paper.
So I will say they help the paranormal field in some ways, and then they also really, really hurt it.
Right.
And
I agree with that completely.
And they, along with the Ouija board, you know, a lot of people also didn't help with the whole satanic panic around it, but they were pretty much like primarily like some of like the ones who really fueled it.
Yeah, well, it's like I feel like I go blue in the face because I'm always like, it's not always demons. Guess what? Yep. You can have a haunting and it's not a demon. I know. Isn't this shocking information? All three of us, seasoned investigators. Guess what, people? It's not always demons.
No.
And it's not always evil. It's
not always evil.
I mean, like it might be scary. Don't get me wrong. I am still afraid of some of the things that happen to me, but like I'm never gonna jump to it being like, oh, that's a demonic spirit. This is a demon. Like I don't think I will ever really have those words come out of my mouth in a serious manner. And I'm quite all right with it. And I know I know that there's a lot of talk about it because it is a big buzzword on YouTube, and I always see both sides of the card. So
same. No, exactly the same.
It is awful because like I get it and I get it.
Have you had a scary experience though?
In terms of like being absolutely terrified, I don't think one of those have happened yet, which I'm quite all right with. But at the same time, I'm kind of welcoming it because I do want to get braver, and I do really want to go off on my own sometimes. And a big reason why I don't go off by myself is that my friends realized that they could scare me when we were at Waverly Hills last year. So now they make it a habit to try to get me to cry each year.
Jerks.
They're looking for reasons to scare you.
It actually got so bad that this year, so we were at Old Hospital on College Hill, and that's in like West Virginia. It's this old mining hospital. It's very, very creepy. And the mayor of the town, who was actually a Haddingfield, him and Tanya, they own it, and they're actually renovating the doctor's houses and the nurse's cottage into like Airbnbs for teams to stay on site. So we were there for our event, and we stayed in the doctor's house, and I'm always the first one up. It's no fail. So I got up and got dressed, and I saw the keys just sitting on the table or like on the kitchen counter, and I just took them. I was like, I have to do B-roll. So the guys are still sleeping from what I know. So I locked myself alone in a haunted hospital in the daylight, and just so they wouldn't scare me. Just so they wouldn't scare me. I have video of me physically locking the door. And then
that is hilarious.
So you're more scared of your teammates than the actual spirits.
A little bit, yeah. But I really, there are moments where I do get scared. Like at Mid-Orange, that is probably the only place that I've ran out of. I don't think I ran out of any other place.
What's Mid-Orange?
Well, no, the Homestead. Mid-Orange was, Carly actually drew cards for me the first time that I went there.
I did.
It was actually really cool. And I think back to it all the time because you mentioned something in that reading about a teacher of some sort, and I never really got the connection to it because, like, while there was a schoolhouse there, I don't know if there was like any like female teachers. But now looking back on it, and after being there so many times after that first time, I'm starting to wonder if you were picking up on the dorm mother, because each dorm had dorm parents. Because these kids who were in the dorms, because it was the New York State Training School for Boys, before it went into a prison. So it was the last stop for, troubled teens before they went off to prison. So they had kids in there from like 12, 13 to about 18 years old. But then you had people who were lying about their age. So I wondered if, you were picking up on her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really weird because I feel like she's shown herself to me and I don't know what to do with that information because part of me also feels like it wasn't real. This was the only time it happened. And if you watch Hellier, you'll know what I'm going to get into.
Yep.
So I did an Estes method and we were sitting in the B dorm, and this was like the first time we were in the B dorm. There was an apparent suicide in there, and we were wrapping up the night, and I was under listening to the headphones and someone else was under, and my headphones were completely static. It was nothing but white noise. And this was also like 3 a.m. So I was falling asleep. And I was like, this is perfect. No one's going to know I'm falling asleep. It's fine. So like,
it's fine.
Yeah. So like, I was like, I feel like I was meditating and not even trying to. I was just literally falling asleep.
Right.
And at one moment, I had this huge flash of an image. And it was the staircase. And I saw the railing. And I saw like from the chest down. And it was a white shirt, like a white collared shirt. And then like a skirt that went up to like the waistline. Like kind of like the old like Victorian style like outfits. And I could just see the hand on the railing. And I go, guys, I don't know. Like, it took me a second because I was like, what the hell is that? I've never had that happen before. And I've done like a whole bunch of estises. And I remember I'm like, hey guys, like, I don't want to say vision. I go, but I think I just had a vision.
But I think I just saw something.
Yeah. And I was just like, I don't know what, but I think we need to pay attention to the staircase. And little did I know, a minute before this happened, they were actually seeing a shadow by that same staircase. Yes. And it was like blocking out the door light, and then it would sink into the ground. And then there's me just emerging from the darkness like, I think we need to watch the staircase.
Oh, wow. Let's look at this. So actually, I feel like you were in a meditative state. Anybody who has heard me talk about my mediumship, it is really rare for me to see or hear anything. I work off of feelings, and that's one of the reasons that I like my cards, because I understand the language they're speaking. I get information. Did you hear that?
Yeah, what was that?
It's my cat. He's crying downstairs. I don't know why he's doing this. He hates me right now because he knows I should be feeding him, but I know I left food out there for him. So he's just like, I'm just going to cry while she's doing something very important.
Acting up.
So there he is. There he is.
That was so funny because what I was going to say.
I saw, like, I tried, like, putting my microphone volume down, and then I saw Melissa's face and I go, shit.
I'm always wanting something paranormal to happen. Well,
there it is. There it is.
There it is. It's a demon. That's what's happening right now.
He's just crying because he's like, wrap it up. I gotta eat.
I'm hungry. Okay. So what I was going to say is that there have been times when I was listening to brown noise or something like that, and it's that space between being asleep and awake, that something about that will open you up. And I have been experimenting and trying to purposely get myself into that space to see if I can see anything, and it works. But
it does work.
I usually fall asleep at,
I really wanted to have that experience again. And I try to get myself so tired. And like, sometimes they'll like, I'm like the Estes person for the group, especially when we do events. It's just something very easy to do. And after like being like doing like the Estes for a while, it's so weird to be on the other side of the headphones actually asking questions. So I like being under, so I don't have to have any idea what's happening around me.
We've been talking for a while now. Is there any questions that you have for Carly or I?
I do. If you guys could just pick up and go tomorrow, what would be the haunted location you would go to investigate?
Chernobyl.
Oh, that's such a good one.
Minus the radiation.
That would be so fun to explore.
Literally, they picked up and let everything is still there. Wouldn't that
you know what's really cool about that? It's not Chernobyl, but if you ever find yourself out in Indiana, the Indiana State Sanatorium is literally a time capsule of itself.
So cool.
We were probably there almost 10 years to the exact day that it shut down when we first went there. And there's like a whole room filled with linens. You could open up drawers and still find like letters and like glasses from old patients. So if you ever find yourself in Indiana,
go there.
Hey, it's super list again.
It's super freaking creepy.
What about you, Carly?
I would go somewhere in England. I think probably Hever Castle, because I have a long-lasting obsession with Anne Boleyn, who was Henry VIII's second wife, and she was beheaded, and her ghost is regularly seen wandering the halls of Hampton Court.
Absolutely love that. Does her ghost have her head or no head?
Her ghost does have her head, yes.
I wonder if she can like take it off.
There are, I see, I wondered that too. There are some stories where it's a headless apparition, but her spirit is supposed to be very recognizable. And I just would love to connect to her energy. Like that would be my number one.
That would be cool.
We have kept you for a while, and your cat is hungering. Your cat is experiencing.
Go feed your cat.
Extreme hunger pains. Thank you so much for talking to us. I'm so glad that we finally got to do this. I am thrilled.
I am so excited that you guys had me on here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I've loved every second of it.
Sorry about my cat.
You're good.
If you loved what you heard today, please consider leaving us a review. Death Becomes Us is an Emotional Pictures production produced by Sarah Nichols and Alex Eisenstein.